guys, welcome to Quilt 101. I'm Emily and today's tutorial is extra exciting because we are collaborating with Brittany over at Lo Behold Stitchery to offer her incredibly gorgeous Retro Ornaments pattern in our pre-cut quilt kit. Woo woo. So this pattern is amazing for a lot of different reasons, but what makes it extra special, if you can't tell, is that it is made of curves. This is our first quilt kit we have ever offered that has curves in it, and I'm here to tell you that there's nothing to be afraid of. I know it can seem a little daunting, and I understand, I felt the same way too, but stay tuned and I will show you step by step on how to make these blocks. So this quilt kit we will be offering in lap and wall hanging sizes. So you can see the lap right behind me. Look how beautiful it is. There's another row down there that you can't see, but it's 16 blocks in total. And then we also have this wall hanging. Oh, so pretty. I just love how festive this is. This fabric that we're using is called Cozy and Joyful by Maureen Crackness, and she designs for Art Gallery Fabrics. So the fabrics are super high quality, and she's just such a talented pattern designer or fabric designer. And so this is, I mean, my dream come true working with like my favorite pattern designer and my favorite fabric designer. Like, I am one happy girl right now. So in each pre-cut quilt kit, you will receive everything you need to complete the quilt. So you'll receive all the fabric for the top, binding, and if you want backing for the lap, that's optional, but backing will be included for the wall hanging. It'll also have the official Lo Behold Stitchery paper pattern. So this is my copy, but yours will be all nice, fresh and clean, I promise. And so you will have everything you need to complete the top. Some notions that I recommend are with the curves, I highly recommend that you use these Wonder Clips. So these you can use in place of the sewing pins, which pins work as well, but if you sew a lot, these are just worth the investment. You can use them in like every project. You will realize you use these. And that way you're not poking yourself with pins. Brittany over at Lo Behold Stitchery has been so kind to let us film a tutorial on how to make this pattern. We're not going to be sharing any measurements because we want you guys to have to purchase the pattern in order to have all of that information. So you can purchase her pattern over at loandbeholdstitchery.com, or if you order one of our pre-cut kits, the pattern will be included in that. Stay tuned if you want to learn how to make one of these ornament blocks. I promise you by the end of this, curves will not seem as daunting. I do recommend this pattern though, and this quilt for beginner to like advanced quilters. If you are a beginner or first time quilter, we have lots of beginner friendly quilts over at quilt101.com. So make sure to check that out if you're a beginner and you're just trying to get started. So here is everything that will be included in the wall hanging pre-cut kit. The lap size, all these pieces will be included as well. You'll just have a lot more of everything, including 16 different fabrics for the ornaments. So you're gonna get everything pre-cut for the ornaments. You're gonna have the backgrounds. You're gonna have fabric for the cap, backing, binding, the official Lo Behold Retro Ornament paper pattern, as well as the paper template. So to get started, we're just gonna make one block today. And I think today we're gonna make this super cute nutcracker one. So we're just gonna grab 4 of these pieces. We're gonna grab 2 of the background, 2 caps, oops, and then 2 of these backgrounds that have the curve cut out into it. So we're going to take all these pieces and we're going to make one block. At Quilt 101, we pride ourselves in offering pre-cut quilt kits. So as soon as a quilt is delivered to your house, you can take it straight to your sewing machine to start sewing. However, that does not mean that there is no like cutting or trimming as you are making the quilt, and that is what is the case with this kit. So you will have to cut out some curved pieces yourself. We tried everything we could think of to try to have it, and so all of these curves were cut for you, but unfortunately with just the way that this quilt and these blocks are made, that just wasn't a possibility. So we have included the template with each of your kits. But so you will have to, I'll show you later how to prep this template, and so that way you can trim it up. But we have done all of the curves that we can. Brittany from Lo Behold Stitchery is a quilting genius. I mean, if you guys don't follow her, I mean, you guys are seriously missing out, because her patterns are beyond gorgeous. She has the best taste. Like, I am obsessed with her and her style and all of her quilt designs. So you guys have to follow. So to get started, I just want to show you a finished block real fast to show you what we're going to work on. So first we're going to work on these blocks right here that have the cap attached to it, because those are the pieces that we need to sew first, and we're going to use the template to cut out the curve on. So we are just going to, I'm going to set these cute little, I just love these nutcrackers. I'm going to set the nutcracker and these background pieces that are already cut. I'm going to set these off to the side, and we are just going to work with these pieces right here, which are just like the square background and the cap. So I am going to remove these stickers because we don't need them anymore. I'm going to remove those stickers, and then we are just going to lay these blocks out. And remember, we are just making one block at a time. Whenever you go to make this at home, it might be best to chain piece things so you can get a bunch of blocks done at the same time. You just go with whatever you want. If you prefer to work more, you know, just making a couple blocks a day, do that. Or you can just chain piece and just do a bunch of blocks at once. So we need to sew these caps a 1/4 inch seam with the 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides of these rectangles, because you don't want them to both be on the same side, because then they won't match up. So we need to have one with the cap piece on the far right and one on the far left. And so now I'm just going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch just right here. I have my 2 blocks sewn, and I'm just double checking, just making sure that the caps are going to line up in the center. It's not like I've made that mistake. I have. That's why I'm just going to keep reminding you. So I'm first going to just set the seam right here, and then we're just going to press to the caps. We're going to press that to each side. All right. So now we have the caps, or at least we have the tops that are ready to be trimmed using the template. Making the template is really easy. You're just going to grab the template that is included in your kit. I just have some all-purpose tape and not your fabric scissors. Make sure just to use your normal household scissors. And I am just going to go through, and we're just going to cut along this outline. So now that we have the template pieces cut out, you're going to see right here, it has tape here, has those kind of like dotted lines. You're going to see the same thing on the smaller piece. So we're going to line up those lines. And it might even be easier to cut on top of that line, and so that way you can line it up. Okay, and you should see like the curve should line up right there and on the top. And then we're just going to tape that in place. Then I find that it's easiest to tape on the back as well to just reinforce that. Okay, and so now the template is all done. See, I told you it wasn't too bad. So now that we have the template all done, we are going to go ahead and grab our background A1 and A2 pieces. And this is kind of what makes this this pattern a little bit more advanced, are these curves, but it's not bad. So you should, I kind of sewed this on wonky. You guys just need to be a little bit more careful than me whenever you sew these caps on, that everything is lined up so that way it stays straight, but no big deal. So to me, it's easier to cut this on its side a little bit. So we're going to take the template, how it has a right angle, we're going to line it up with the right angle of the block. And as long as your stitch, your seam stitch was 1/4 inch, it should match up perfectly. And so now this is cardstock, so there is a little bit of a weight to it, which is good. And we're just going to carefully, making sure that everything is nice lined up, we're just going to carefully use this template and use that as a guide to cut right along the edge. Making sure you don't cut the paper. It's not normally this difficult, but I have a camera right in my face, so there we go. And then I'm actually going to trim up right here because I want that to be squared. Okay, so now we have one piece done. So now we're going to do the same thing. Get rid of all these scraps. We're going to do the same thing with this other background piece, except this time we're just going to flip the template over. I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, for some reason, it's easier for me to cut using these angles. All right, we're going to line it up. This one, I sewed this cap on a lot better, so it's nice and straight. Line up all of those corners. Perfect. So now I'm just going to take, keep it all lined up, the rotary cutter, and then just cut right along the edge. There we go. So we have both of these pieces done. Now the nice thing about our kit is that we've done, you do have to cut these curves out, but we have done the majority of them. So you only have to worry about cutting the pieces that have the caps. We've done everything else. With these pieces ready, we are now ready to start constructing the block. So I went ahead and I grabbed these other 2 background pieces that have already been cut. These are ready in your kit. And I've also taken all 4 of these pieces. This is the actual ornament. And so one notion that I cannot recommend highly enough are these wonder clips. You can also use pins, but these are, to me, they're way easier on your hands. You're not poking yourself, and the grip is really good. And you'll use these all the time whenever you are sewing and quilting and honestly all around your house. So I highly recommend these. We do have these in our shop if you're interested. So the very first thing that we are going to do is I'm just going to move all of these. We're just going to work on one block at a time, or one little piece at a time. So we're going to fold this in half, and then we're going to take our finger and we are going to crease the fabric. So you can see that line there, and we're going to use that as a guide to line up the fabric. We're going to do the same thing with the ornament, so you can see how that's going to fit in there. So we're going to take this, fold it in half, and use our finger to crease it. So that gives us a nice marking guide. Now that we have the creases, we're going to start clipping the fabric together. And first, what I like to do is I line up the edges. So I flip it like this, and then I turn this corner down. So we're going to have these 2 corners match each other, and I am going to clip it. And then I'm just going to gently kind of get this edge right here, and it kind of makes a right corner. Those edges line up. Can you see that? And I'm going to clip those in place. And now I'm going to go over to this other side. Oops. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to line up those right corners. Clip. Line up those edges. Clip it. And now we're going to kind of start, whoops, sorry, bumped the camera. We're going to go to the center. Now remember, we put those creases in the center so we know where they are. So we're going to take both of those marks. We're going to line them up and clip. And then I like to clip 1 or 2 more times in between there. So I'm just going to take the fabric, use my fingers and line it up. Then you can see it just kind of naturally falls into place. Clip that. Same with over here. I mean, it literally does, because the curve is the same, it just naturally lines up. But the more clips, the merrier when it comes to this. You will be so happy you use more pins or more clips whenever you go to sew it together. So there is 1 block done. We've got to do this 4 more times with the 4 pieces that go into each block. So I'm going to go ahead and clip the rest of the pieces together. Okay, we are back at the sewing machine and our foot is at 1/4 inch. So now we are going to sew up these blocks. Now the most important tip I have for you whenever you sew these up is slow and steady. And it takes a little bit of practice, so just go really slow, you'll get the hang of it. So we're gonna first start by putting one of the corners under the foot. And this is where this clip right here comes in handy because it keeps those edges lined up. And then we're just going to we're going to sew super slowly. We're just going to follow that curve. And you can tell as it looks like it's going to be all bunched up and you're going to get a bunch of, you're going to sew over, like the fabric's going to bunch up and you're going to sew over it. It's not. As you sew, the fabric kind of lines up, like it just lines up with each other and lies nice and flat. And so you're just going to keep going along. Follow that nice curve. Make sure all the fabrics are lined up. All right. First block is done. So you can see whenever you open it up, it is nice and beautiful. Look at that. So we're just going to do that with the next block. All right, so now we're going to start sewing the second block using the same method. We're just going to go nice and slow. We're going to use our finger to kind of guide the fabric. Make sure all the fabric is matched up and nice and lined up whenever you sew. The fabric just kind of naturally falls flat. You just sew around that curve, just using the edge of your foot, just using that as a guide to line it up with the edge of the fabric. Okay, there's block number 2. Just 2 more to go. Now, one thing that I absolutely love about this pattern, there's a lot of things I love about this pattern, but one of my favorites is that these blocks, like the finished block is a really large size. And so while it might take a little bit of extra work to piece things together with the curves, it's just so nice because each block is so big. It just helps the quilt go by faster. And I don't know, to me, it's just super rewarding. Okay, just finished the 4th block for this ornament. So now we're just going to go to the ironing board. So make sure your iron is nice and hot, and we're going to press the seams. So Brittany has included in her pattern the ironing direction, which is so nice. Ironing makes a huge difference, and you want to make sure to follow the correct ironing direction. So I'm going to follow her recommendations in the pattern. So basically the blocks in so the top left and the bottom right, you're going to press it, and so the seam is going towards the background. And then the opposite ones, you're going to press, let me grab this one, you're going to press it towards the ornament. So this is just going to help the seams nestle together, which allows for you to get crisper lines and for the seams to lie nice and flat. Here are those 4 blocks that we just made. It was so much fun. I love working with curves. So now we just have to sew these squares together. So we're first going to sew these 2 together, then we'll sew these 2, making sure to do it right side, and then we will sew the 2 rows together. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then we're going to square up the block, and then this block is all done. I just want to show you real fast the reasoning why it is important to iron the seams the way it says in the pattern. So you're ironing seams the opposite way, and because of that, you can see on the bottom the seam is pointing down and the seam on the top is pointing up. And so whenever you go to match these seams up, whenever you go to iron them, they kind of click into place because they're going the opposite directions. And so you can feel whenever they kind of lock together that they are nice and matched up. So we're just going to stitch over it, and then to show it to you real fast, it's going to give you a perfect crisp match. There you go. You can see that. Look how nice that matches together. And it is also nice because it lies nice and flat. So that's one of the perks of nesting seams together. Another tip for you is that if you ever find in the process of making this that the fabric's just not lying super flat, starch is your best friend. I love Best Press. I was recently introduced to this, the Faultless Premium starch. This is fantastic too, but starch is your best friend whenever it comes with curves. So I just put a quick little spray on it, and then you will just see how nice and flat it gets after you iron it. Oh, starch is like music to my ears. It is one of my favorite tools with quilting. So the last step to finishing this block is to just square it up, and the square up measurements are in your pattern. That's a non-negotiable. You have to square things up. I know you get excited at this point. You just want to sew the whole top together, but squaring it up is just going to make everything line up better. It's going to make the assembly go smoother, and it's worth the extra couple minutes to get everything nice and squared. But as of now, this block is done, and I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you guys for watching this tutorial for the Retro Ornament block. I hope this video helped to show you that curves are not as scary as they may seem. That is the whole point with these tutorial videos. I just want to show you the finished quilt. This is the wall hanging right here. I just want to showcase the quilting. I just did really simple straight line quilting on my home machine. So this is something you could totally do at home with your machine. This one we did take to a long arm quilter, and I love the way that turned out as well. I just want to thank you again for joining us, and you guys have a happy day.